Ranjana Tripathi, Associate Professor, Department of English, Rajarshi Tandon Girls Degree College, Allahabad. I am going to present a module of your PG course of Gender Studies entitled Feminist, Pedagogy and Praxis. Feminist pedagogy is a way of thinking about teaching and learning grounded in the principles of feminist theory. It initiates a set of teaching practices and generates a philosophy that is at its core feminist. The world of education, like the world of knowledge, has been dominated by men, thereby depriving the women of their perspectives in teaching practices. Feminism associates with the gender-centric study. It is a philosophy of humanism and lays emphasis on importance of women, their experience, their histories, aiming at gender equality. It interrogates the relationships among gender races, class, the environments, sexuality and power. It also regards misogyny as the root of all inequalities and injustices. The word pedagogy refers to the sciences and craft of teaching. Its chief components are: first, the curriculum, the knowledge and content that are taught; second, the instruction, suitable modes of teaching and modes of interaction in teaching and learning; third, the evaluation methods of the assessment of student performance. Feminist pedagogy may be defined as a movement against hegemonic educational practices that tacitly accept or more forcefully reproduce an oppressively gendered, classed, radicalized and androcentric social order. The feminist pedagogy, through desirable changes in educational tools, techniques and systems, aims to lessen, if not nullify, the impact of male supremacy through the ages that have given to rise to power inequalities. Praxis is practices as distinguished from theories, application or use of knowledge skills. The methods of education have to be changed from prescribed to bring about a social change in the society. There has been a resistance of hierarchy in feminism. Feminist pedagogy is marked by the development of non-hierarchical relationships among teachers and students and reflexivity about power relations, not only in society but in the classroom. It aims at an effort to overthrow hierarchy of authority between the teacher and the student. The students also deliver content material in the class and also influence the class through their content. Besides traditional resource material of information such as academic formals and books, the experiences of students and teachers are also used as resource material, thereby bringing to light those areas that are missing in the entire grant of knowledge, as they have not been documented in academic work. The experiences of women, their perspectives on issues of all disciplines are unfurled. The class experiences transformative learning through sharing of experience and points of view of the students. Feminist pedagogy aims at giving knowledge to the students and teachers and also providing new direction to their thinking. The new perspectives on multidisciplinary issues may give rise to new critical ways of thinking and analysis, such as have been in practice till now. Feminist pedagogy is committed to the voices of the marginalized. As a theoretical practice, feminist pedagogy is inclusive by nature. Inclusive knowledge by incorporating the voices of the marginalized students, and its aims at bringing about genre parity in the development of multidisciplinary and interdisciplinary knowledge. It aims at social change. The aim of feminist pedagogy is creating consciousness leading to social action and transformation, empowering individuals within a larger project of social change. In terms of objectives and outcomes, feminist pedagogy seeks not only to enhance a student's conceptual learning, but to promote consciousness raising, personal growth, and social responsibility. It develops a critical consciousness whereby knowledge is applicable to bringing about social change and works to bring about a transformation, thus giving rise to a society that is free from gender biases and welcomes and promotes new avenues and directions of knowledge. Traditionally, teaching is done in a conservative way with lectures, tutorials, seminars, tests, and examinations. But with the changing times, these methods do not encompass the increased diversity in the educational environment, both in terms of students and teachers. Changing content is not the only means of bringing about change. To change what you teach requires to change how you teach. Feminist pedagogy questions the content and methods of education. The feminist pedagogy attempts to question what and how we teach and reasons behind it and how it influences the class and communities. The important areas covered in this literature include revamping of curricula and courses to focus more on women's lives and experiences. Special emphasis is laid on approaches to teaching common women's studies courses or courses on women or gender or sexuality. Course content is of primary importance besides laying emphasis on issues arising from classroom dynamics about teacher authority and the resistance towards authority. It aims to influence diverse minds. The feminist pedagogy keeps in mind the diverse fields to which the students belong to and the impact it would have on the community at large. Robin Crabtree considers feminist pedagogy as more than teaching about women or teaching feminist perspectives. It is about the relationships between teachers, the students, education, and society. Feminist pedagogy has much in common with Paulo Freire's liberatory pedagogy, his ideas about education and classroom practices. Like Freire's liberatory pedagogy, feminist pedagogy is based on assumptions about power and consciousness raising, acknowledges the existence of oppression as well as possibility of ending it, and foregrounds the desire for and primary goal of social transformation. Important philosophical influences on feminist pedagogy can be traced back to progressive education movement in the US. For example, John Dewey's works Democracy and Education, published in 1916, which emphasized experiential learning, social responsibility, and a reclamation of civic mission of education in a democracy. There is immense role of feminist pedagogy in the restructuring of education. Feminist pedagogy has an important role to play in restructuring of education. There are three different approaches of feminist analysis to challenge the prevailing educational system suggested by Ronald Martin, Bell Hooks, and Jean O. Barr. Jane Roland Martin discusses the ideology behind the framework underlying contemporary educational pedagogy through a study of the educational theorists, namely Jean-Jacques Rousseau, John Stuart Mill, R.S. Peters, Paul Hurst, Maria Montessori, and Alan Bloom. Martin notices that in the garb of liberal education that is said to be imparted through conservative method, there is an underlying hidden promotion of misogyny and anti-domesticity. He says that liberal education is solely intellectual, excluding what Martin calls the reproductive values of society. Everything from child rearing to running a household and maintaining healthy relationships. The society regards liberal education values valuable, and whatever it does not reach is regarded as unimportant. The ideal values are those that are attributed to men, not that are attributed to women. Such a pedagogy prepares one for public, not for private world. It should be remembered that academic subject matters and disciplines, according to Martin, are constructed, not found, and the boundaries of education should be redrawn. The goal of education should be to liberate people, not to be disembodied intellectuals, and study of gender is the key to transforming education. Martin further says that a gender-sensitive pedagogy includes development of person as a member of home. It promotes care, concern, and connection. It examines the underlying misogynist approach of education and values the domestic practices. Feminist pedagogy contributed in the growth of gender-friendly society and shows the misogynist and anti-domesticity promoted by liberal education. Bell Hooks in Teaching to Transgress, Education as a Practice of Freedom, published in 1994, examines the classroom as the locus of oppression and place that has the potential of liberation. In a classroom, the professor is the source of knowledge that is taken in by the students and used at a later date. The role of professor is dynamic, while that of the class is passive. The class learns the lesson of obedience to authority, and the dominance of hierarchical system prevails, whereby the more knowledgeable dominates and makes passive class that is regarded as only the seeker of knowledge. A classroom through the policy of control promotes oppression, yet it remains the most radical space of possibility in the academy. Learning can and should be a liberating means of creating one's own space where they can grow without oppression, can think and analyze and become creative, free from the suppressive ties of oppression. Further, Hooke says that university should shun from reproductive elite values and should encourage students and teachers to transgress those boundaries that would confine each pupil to a rote assembly line approach of learning. Learning should be made exciting and should be a collective effort. That is, the students should contribute to the knowledge and should not be passive and subservient to the professor. The classroom should have a democratic setting where everyone is of value. She considers teaching as a performatory act serving as a catalyst that calls everyone to become more and more engaged. Moving ahead from this point, Jean O'Barr and Mary Wire question why all works on feminist pedagogy are written by teachers. They promote students' initiative changes in academy. Their perspectives should not be ignored or silenced if education has to be collaborative and interactive. O'Barr and Wire find the perspectives of students unique and valuable. The focus, therefore, should be on student-based critiques of learning. Feminist pedagogy involves many disciplines and promotes interdisciplinary studies. All disciplines have knowledgeable creation, largely dominated by men, and issues have been viewed from the perspective of men. Feminist pedagogy aims at creation of knowledge that is free from gender bias and integration of perspectives both of men and women. The fact remains that all feminist scholars have to undergo what Diana M.A. Relke terms as interdisciplinarization. So, the women's studies make science more interdisciplinary. Recruiting of more women for teaching of science, especially women who are feminists, can broaden and diversify scientific culture. Feminist pedagogy aims at broadening and diversifying all knowledge through interdisciplinary approach, promoting pluralistic rather than dualistic equalitarianism rather than hierarchical knowledge. The feminist pedagogy presupposes that all members are responsible for the classroom dynamics. The teacher must realize that power of authority can make classroom teaching just one-sided and make the students feel excluded. Interactive and participative methods of teaching can make the students more active, make them think and analyze, and add to the knowledge of the class as well. Feminist pedagogy emphasizes epistemological validity of personal experience. It inquires into the traditional academics that has overlooked the experiences of women. On the other hand, feminist pedagogy recognizes subjective ways of inquiry and knowledge production. Feminist pedagogy questions traditional knowledge and how it serves vested interests and power politics through the systemic exclusion of oppression of particular class of people. Special attention has to be given to the educational environments within which teaching is being conducted. efforts have to be made to locate the reasons of hostility towards girls and women in the schools and classrooms. The evolving status of women at all levels of education has to be monitored. This approach includes an explicit commitment to address the intersections of gender, race, ethnicity, class, sexuality, not only in the content of the discipline, but in the dynamics of the classroom. This approach includes an explicit commitment to address the intersections of gender, race, ethnicity, class and sexuality, not only in the content of the discipline, but in the dynamics of the classroom. The teachers following the feminist pedagogical approach resist adapting to dominant cultural notions about gender, race, sexuality and class, since this has historically marginalized individuals and groups and have contributed to the oppression of the marginalized. Feminist pedagogy links classroom-based teaching to service learning, feminist action research and other methods of engaged and community-based learning. This tenet is about recognizing the links between personal, including the individual's educational experience, and the political, including working to understand and change the collective social reality. The phrase personal is political not only validates the political nature of women's individual experiences and voices, but acts as a reminder that theory and intellectual inquiry have a responsibility to society. There is a gap between theory and practice. There are arguments in support of practicing feminist pedagogy, but putting feminist theory into practice raises a number of pedagogical challenges and dilemma. The challenges create additional political and professional consequences for teachers who practice feminist pedagogy, and this has a negative reputation in the workplace, especially because the workplace does not generally value innovative teaching nor gives any reward or even appreciation for it. The teacher's authority in a feminist classroom in practicing feminist pedagogy, the personal element is inevitable as it is related to the struggle of women, other feminists and other underrepresented groups. They are given the authority to speak and their experiences are valued. There has to be a re-imaging of teachers' authority in the feminist classroom. This is a challenge that is faced by feminist teachers and scholars. Male students and some female students have a tendency to accept feminist ideas more readily from male professors than from female ones. A way to minimize the impact of this bias, the authors conclude that one way of resisting the dominance of the professor is to make the pedagogy part of the class and make the class interrogate amongst themselves. A feminist classroom, the pedagogy used is or should be used as much a part of course content as the disciplinary subject matter. Importantly, they also argue that the absence of male instructors in most women's studies curricula implicitly reifies the status of males as to the invisible center as the genderless norm against which women are studied as deviant, as other. Moreover, typical in most women's studies programs, male professors being executed from being excused from taking responsibility of women's studies courses. It also denies men the opportunity to teach topics that are personally relevant to them, and students the opportunity to explore these issues with a variety of differently situated faculty members. Debbie Storrs and John Mihlich, in their article Beyond Essentialism, confront the problem of who should teach what to whom. They question the premise that only those who have experienced gender oppression, and their unstated assumption is that this group includes only women, have the knowledge and right to teach about it. Practice of feminist pedagogy is a complex task. Working on equal terms within the class itself is difficult. Special care has to be taken to overthrow the conservative hierarchical methods of teaching. The power relations should be explored, and collective discussion and mutual support of teachers committed to equality should be promoted. Feminist pedagogy can bring about social change, and this change can make the world a better place to live. Thank you.